Good evening, Year 11, and welcome to your English Language Paper 1 Night Before News. This is going to work in a slightly different way to the literature video that you watched last week. So we'll get started in a minute, and yeah, thank you for tuning in. Okay, so we're going to start with a traditional do now. So I'd like you to answer the 6 questions on the screen there, and then I'll show you the answers on the next slide. Okay, so here are the answers. So all of these were just basic recap questions on your language paper 1, which are going to be sitting tomorrow morning. Number 1, how many questions are there in the reading section? There are 4, and there are 4 marks available for question 1, 8 marks available for question 2, 8 marks available for question 3, and 20 marks available for question 4. In the writing section, you've only got 1 question, that's the creative writing, and you've got 40 marks in total available for that. Key skills for 2 of the most important questions on the reading section. For question 2, that's language analysis, and for question 4, that's evaluation. So those are the key words that you hopefully should know at this stage that set you up to be successful in those questions. So just correct those now, please. Okay, so before we get started, you're going to need the following things. You're going to need a pen, you're going to need some lined paper, something to write on, and you're going to need a copy of the past paper. That's the paper that's been posted online along with this video and has also been sent to your arbor by your class teacher. Okay, it's not a traditional past paper, it's not an actual exam paper, but it's more of a guided exam paper. So it has lots of tips and hints and strategies and support for each question, so it will hopefully help you revise at the same time as actually practicing. Now I'm going to go through each of the questions in turn. What I would suggest is that you focus on the questions that you feel you need to work on the most. If you want to have a go and you've got time to have a go at each question, then definitely do that. But if, for example, you know you're quite weak on question 4 or you're not sure at all what question 3 is about, then focus on that question first, skip forward to those slides and have a go at that one first so that you can focus on your real area of need. But as I said, if you can do the whole paper, that's what we would recommend right now. Okay, first job, as it will be your first job tomorrow morning in the actual exam, is to read the text. Okay, I've got a screenshot here of the relevant pages. It's page 2 and 3 in your past paper. You'll see at the top there you've got a kind of summary of what you should do in this section, and it's suggesting that you spend a really decent amount of time reading the text in detail. It's really important you grasp that text and understand it fully before you go on. If you need to read it twice, maybe 3 times, that's absolutely fine. Okay, as you're reading, it's a good idea to underline any words or phrases that you don't understand, to try and use the context around those phrases to work out what they mean. Obviously you could look those words up in terms of their definitions, but you won't be able to do that tomorrow. So just be aware that some words are going to be tricky to understand, or some phrases are going to be tricky to understand and may need some further work. There will be a glossary, so key terms or kind of vocabulary words that are highlighted will be given to you in a glossary, but that was normally only 2 or 3 words, and they're very specific kind of technical words that are given to you. So spend now 10 to 15 minutes really reading the text carefully. It's called The Phantom of the Opera, and once you've done that, you'll be ready to move on. Okay, so question 1 is the first question on the reading section. It's really straightforward. It's worth 4 marks, and you need to identify explicit and implicit information or ideas from the text. It normally asks you to write down 4 pieces of information from the first paragraph or so regarding a specific aspect in the text. Okay, so this one should be really quick, nice and easy, 2 minutes. Read the question, write down your 4 answers, and then check. The mark scheme is actually directly underneath the question, so just be careful not to look before you've answered the question. Then check it against the mark scheme. Okay, question 2. So for question 2, as we looked at in the do now, the key focus is language analysis. Okay, so you're going to get a question that's asking you about a specific part of the text. So you can see that in the sample question there. It's from the start, roughly from the start of the text. It's normally a paragraph or 2 paragraphs. This one's slightly longer, giving you a little bit more to analyse from it. But you need to make sure that you're firstly highlighting the focus of the question. You then need to make sure that you're picking out 3 or 4 keywords or phrases that you think would help you answer that question, and those keywords or phrases need to have at least some form of deeper meaning, so connotations of keywords, individual words that you can analyse, as well as examples of imagery. Imagery will get you the higher marks because they have the most deeper meaning. Okay, so metaphors, similes and personification. There may or may not be examples of those, there usually are, but we can't guarantee that, so you need to read the extract carefully and then highlight your evidence. Okay, once you're ready to write, again, have a look at the model answer. You can do that before you're writing on this one to see what a really good answer looks like. So that's on the second page of the question 2 section. Okay, so look at the model answer and then have a go at writing your own analysis of 3 or 4 key quotations to answer the question. Okay, so question 3. This one is a tricky question. It's one that often students struggle with, but there's a basic structure that will allow you to answer it. Okay, so we're looking at whole text structure here, which means the choices the writer makes about the order of events in the text, and we're particularly looking at the beginning, we're looking at the end, and we're looking at a turning point somewhere in the middle that creates tension. Okay, so it's important to remember we're always focused on what the writer's choice is. Okay, so what is the writer choosing to start with and why? What effect does that have? Why does this writer, for example, start with a description of the phantom rather than events? Why describe the phantom first and then move on? Okay, it'd be really useful to look at the model answer for this one because it gives you a clear idea of what that answer should look like. But we're looking for roughly 3 paragraphs. Beginning, what does the writer focus on and why? The end, what does the writer focus on and why? And a turning point, where is tension created in the story? Okay, so again, read the model answer and then have a go at writing your own question 3. Okay, so question 4 is the most important question on the reading section because it's worth 20 marks. So that's half of the overall marks that you're allocated for the reading section. The key skill, as we discussed in the Do Now, is evaluation. So that means making a judgment, giving an opinion in response to a statement, and supporting that opinion or response with evidence. Okay, so you're going to be given a statement in the question that you need to agree or disagree with. It's often and normally easier to agree with it. Okay, and you can show shades of agreement by saying you fully agree or that you partially agree. Okay. The statement is normally in 2 sections. There's normally 2 statements that you need to look at. So look at the question carefully. It should have 2 different things that it's saying. They're often quite closely related, but they will be slightly different. Your first paragraph needs to be a kind of mini intro that evaluates and sets out your opinion. So just talking about whether you fully agree or partially agree with both statements and why, without using any quotations. Your subsequent paragraphs should then focus on a really detailed analysis of the writer's methods and how they achieve their goal or their aim by using methods. Okay, so that could be things like language techniques, that could be things like structural techniques, but it could also be things like perspective, atmosphere, changes in mood, building tension. Okay, so there's a range of different things that we can consider for writer's methods for question 4. Again, look at the model answer and then have a go at writing your own answer after that. Okay, question 5. This is arguably the most important question on the paper because it's worth half of the total marks. So you get 40 marks out of your 80 just on this one answer. So it's really important to remember that you need to spend 45 minutes at a minimum answering this question. It may be that in the exam you want to answer this question first, so that you can bank those marks and be really secure that you've used the appropriate amount of time. You don't have to, but that is something that we kind of suggest to make sure that you're giving yourself the maximum kind of time and the maximum opportunity to gain marks out of the 40. Okay. Reminder, there are 2 choices for this question. You answer one choice. Choice A is a picture, where you need to write a story based on that picture. It says a description, but it needs to be more like a story, or the opening of a story. And the second option, which is more of a prompt, much more open-ended, where you can kind of make up or introduce your own ideas. Okay, as I just mentioned, it's the opening of a story, a snapshot, not a beginning, middle and end story. So we should be trying to focus mainly on one event, one character or a couple of characters, and not include too much detail and too much narrative exposition. Okay, because we want to focus on the quality of our writing. You get marks on this question for content and organisation, that's called AO5, and that's worth 24 marks, and then 16 marks for AO6, which is the accuracy of spelling, punctuation and grammar, as well as the use of sentence structures and vocabulary. Okay, so it's important to practice those skills. Now you could write a full answer for this if you wanted to, but I'm aware that time might be short the night before the exam. So you've got here, or in the booklet and on the screen here in the snapshot, a sample answer in response to one of those questions. So a good idea might be to try and rewrite that sample answer to make it more tense, more exciting, more engaging, and to think about varying sentence structures and use of vocabulary within that, as well as imagery. That's something else that we need to mention. We should be trying to use our metaphors, personifications, similes in our writing as well. So rewriting that, maybe developing it and trying to improve it, or if you do have time and you want to have a go, writing a full answer to question 5.